Picture this. You're in high school. Your dad shoots himself. Your mother is a bitch. Your brother is a cringe gamer. Your friends are bad influences. Your teachers diddle kids. And you yourself might be an irredeemably bad person. Yeah, life sucks, but it's 2009. So stop giving a shit, pop a narcotic, and spread your suffering to other people. If you can't imagine a situation so specifically awful, I understand, but this is the daily life of Nicole, the protagonist of Class of '09, a visual novel about some of the best, but mostly the worst, parts of being a teenager in the late 2000s. Today, not only am I going to be taking a look at it, but I also brought a friend who goes by the name of Pinkie, who will be giving their outside perspective to see if Class of '09 lives up to the nostalgic hype. Let's go. I've been meaning to talk about Class of '09, but never really got the chance. I was only 11 years old in 2009. Meaning while I didn't get the authentic teenager experience then, I certainly lived through it and experienced the culture. Class of '09 aims to bring you back to that time, an encapsulated time period before the use of ChatGPT or iPhones that many people now in their 30s are nostalgic for. When it comes to visual novels, Class of '09 is rather unique. It has all the typical visual novel UI elements, but there's no internal protagonist dialogue, and every character is voiced while the game runs on autopilot, occasionally stopping only for choices. Rather than a casual reading experience, Class of '09 wants to capture that late 2000s teen drama series vibe. You know, the ones you knew had a middling budget, even as a kid, but you didn't want to relinquish the remote lest your parents put on another Seinfeld rerun. Class of '09 also focuses a lot of its marketing on the fact that it's not like other visual novels, ooh-woo, stating it's an anti-visual novel where you play as the anime girl causing chaos in the lives of suitors. In a sense this is true, and in a sense this is dishonest, but either way, it ended up successfully marketing itself as a game that even people who don't play visual novels would like. And it worked. Once Class of '09 hooked people in, it sank its claws immediately via its storytelling. Class of '09 starts with a monologue from Nicole, recounting her life moving from city to city due to her mother's constant divorces. This led to Nicole becoming apathetic to her life, almost escaping into normality at one point, until her brother got the family evicted by pirating music, which meant that, yet again, her family had to move. What a fucking noob, man. Nicole, not willing to accept this, decides to go live with her dad, who decides to shoot himself just as Nicole is knocking on his door. Now, she has no choice but to move with her family, but Nicole has all but given up. This is where we begin our tale. I like this introduction to the story because it gets the point across rather quickly that Nicole is pretty much on an abrasive path to self-destruction. After that, given that Class of '09 has a lot of choices right from the get-go that lead to different endings, there isn't an overarching plotline besides Nicole living her daily life and getting into hijinks, which at best are normal teenage situations, and at worst involve the suffering of Nicole and everyone around her. The choice between going to gym class or photography class may seem like a meaningless one at first, but given Nicole's erratic and combative personality, it can end up having lasting consequences. Many of the characters in Class of '09 are tropes, never really going beyond that. Tyler's the stupid jock, Nicole's brother is a gamer, Jeffrey is a cringe anime kid. Why is the camera looking at me? Crispin's whole personality can be described as, hey dude. Most of the teachers want to diddle kids and make it known, and those who don't are just generically bad people. Therefore, even though Nicole as a protagonist is cynical, selfish, and downright villain-like at points, you can't really blame her for her attitude towards some of these characters. I mean, this is literally the first line in the game.
Make no mistake. I'm a sociopath.
Her main ally and eventual best friend Jekka is sometimes the person that keeps her grounded to sanity, yet when things do go awry, Jekka goes with the flow. Class of '09 is interesting because despite the protagonist being evil, you're actively rooting for Nicole after you witness the actions of the other characters and realize that, yeah, everybody sucks here. Then again, maybe that's just me, and I'm a sociopath like Nicole. I think you have to be a sociopath these days to be a content creator. The endings cover a wide variety of dark topics, including murder, self-harm, necrophilia, and racism. There are 15 endings in total, but it's better to say there are routes that lead you down a certain path that has multiple endings, with general bad endings and choices that can but aren't guaranteed to happen. The closest visual novel I could realistically compare this to in that regard is School Days. Despite the many choices and endings, Class of '09 never feels shallow in the execution of its plot, but it's only as deep as a comedic and melodramatic story can get. The story traverses dark topics confidently, but usually as an ultimate goal to each ending. Up until the actual end of the route, the game is mostly Nicole manipulating people, either for fun or to get what she wants. Sometimes she succeeds, and the result is watching characters self-destruct. But as you can expect, some, and a lot of the time, this backfires for her. Beyond the shocking themes, the comedy of the game is hit or miss, and is carried by the voice delivery of the voice actors. I can respect that this game was made for a specific target audience, but the nostalgia factor and character tropiness wears off pretty fast, so most of the funniness is derived from the characters and their downright ridiculous actions, oftentimes instigated by Nicole. Though that's not to say the game is void of some good one-liners. I'd like to emphasize that the late 2000s can be defined as more than just trope characters and Linkin Park. This visual novel does really want to flaunt that authentic appeal, but I kind of get disillusioned with the one-note characters. You know how Ubisoft takes typical heroine tropes and applies them to its heroines? This is the 2009 Western anime version of that. At times, it feels like Class of '09 wants to be anime South Park. If South Park didn't have the meta commentary that makes it interesting. Some endings do have this though, like the FBI ending implying indifference can lead to bad things. Class of '09 does exactly what it says it will do well, being a visual novel that is not what traditional dating sims are. But to be honest, I wouldn't call this a rejection sim like it advertises, because the core aspect is not around romance, but rather around Nicole's fucked up life. The entire marketing sets out to make Class of '09 the ultimate not a dating sim visual novel, which worked, but is kind of dishonest. It's disappointing to me that the only time we can see visual novels succeed in the West is when we go out of our way to make satirical plot premises. But that's enough from me. I'm gonna hand it over to Pinkie real quick, who I handcuffed and forced to play this with me, and see what they have to say on the matter. Alley-oop.
The Class of '09 is a visual novel of all time. First, we have the basics. The music and the visuals themselves are nothing particularly noteworthy. During the playthroughs, we even forgot there was music at all. The only music I can remember is genuinely just the piano music on the opening menu. The visuals, as mentioned, were not noteworthy. Now, this isn't to say that they were bad, but they weren't special either. Rather generic and bland, although they got the job done. They also did not fully capture the vibes of the aesthetic at the time. While they were in the ballpark, they did not hit a home run, as it were. The strongest point of the game, though, would be the narratives. They cover several heavy yet very real topics, ranging from white nationalism, mental health, sexual assault, and self-unaliving. I am not equipped to gauge whether or not they did manage to keep it accurate, however, I am very much aware that these are real everyday things. I do think that what they are trying to go for, by addressing these mature themes, is very good. And for that alone, that is why I do think anyone who does want to experience the visual novel should go in for the narratives alone. Otherwise, if that's not really your style, and you prefer to go for the music and the different visuals, hence the visual novel, this one is a skip.
Thank you for that, because for the most part, I agree. The CGs are end heavy here, so the only visuals you'll be looking at for 90% of the visual novel are sprites that have very little facial variation to them, while they move left and right on the screen. I definitely appreciate that Class of '09 has a plethora of outfits for its characters, which help make the passing of time feel more realistic as characters actually change clothes day by day. The CGs are well done, however, and show the result of whatever ending you found yourself on. So suffice to say, they can and will be pretty graphical. I do appreciate the UI design, including the choice screen, which uses a sidekick phone to present your choices. Ah, technology. How I'm so glad you're not shit anymore. Pinkie also made a note that the soundtrack is pretty much non-existent, which is another feature atypical of traditional visual novels. In Class of '09, since there are no reading pauses, and the emphasis is on vocal delivery and pacing of the plot, this actually works very well. As much as I love a good soundtrack in a visual novel, it makes sense why they didn't bother here. And with that, I feel like there isn't really much more to say about Class of '09. The first one, anyway. I think Pinkie and I are in agreement that you're playing this game for the narrative. A story about a messed up girl doing messed up things in the late 2000s. And for what it is, I respect it. Nicole's a villainous, interesting protagonist, the endings are varied to keep you on your toes, and the pacing engages the watcher by never letting up. Maybe it's not the perfect, authentic late 2000s experience, but it's the closest you are ever gonna get, especially as the late 2000s grows further and further away, because time is a construct and culture is an ever-moving variable that'll slowly drift us by as we look back on what we believed to be the peak of our lives. Feeling old yet? Thanks to Pinkie for joining me today, and you can check out their Twitch in the description below. If you want to see more Class of '09, the re-up, the flip side, let me know in the comments. And as always, I'll see you next time.